Thank you for joining us for The Drive Back, the movie podcast where we imitate our favorite thing to do after a movie, which of course is to talk about it on the way home. I'm Garrett, and as always, I'm joined by my good friend and co-host, Adrian.
Hey there.
And today, we've got another first-timers. What is that, Adrian?
First timers is exactly what it sounds like. Neither of us have seen the movies that will be featured in these episodes. So basically, both of us have either been wanting to see them or have been told to see them, but neither of us have. So we both are looking at these movies with fresh eyes, especially the one today. There's a lot to say about them, especially because, we haven't seen them. So there's just so much to digest all at once, which is going to be so fun. So I'm excited about it.
Absolutely, and today we've got a heavy one. It's on the top of a lot of people's lists for us to watch. So we're gonna be watching, or we did watch, Requiem for a Dream. So all of this and more coming up on the drive back. Alrighty, so a heavy film, a very heavy film. But let's go ahead and talk about what the movie is first, and then discuss a little bit more. Requiem for a Dream was released in 2000 and was directed by Darren Aronofsky. It stars Ellen Burstyn, Jared Leto, and Jennifer Connelly. The drug-induced utopias of four Coney Island people are shattered when their addictions run deep. It was nominated for one Oscar for Best Actress for Ellen Burstyn. This was a very heavy film. I'm gonna keep saying that this is a little bit of a slog, not a slog, not like in a bad sense, but like this is an experience.
Yeah, I think it's designed from the get-go to be one. Without any spoilers, but from the first shot of the film, the cinematography kind of takes over, and you realize that you're in for a very unique experience.
Yes.
But I also want to start off with, I can play the song on piano. I've always liked the song, Requiem for a Dream. I had no idea what this movie was about. I didn't read anything. I just was like, oh, I know the song. Oh, it's probably something like that. Yeah, this is a wild ride of a film. It reminds me of, now I'm blanking on it. What's that Netflix series that came out with Jonah Hill and Emma Stone, the limited series?
Oh, Maniac?
It kind of reminded me of that a little bit in a sense.
Okay.
Just kind of in some of the shooting style and kind of the tone of the movie. But I did enjoy it, regardless of all the heaviness. I think it is quite a very well done film.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong here. I'm gonna say this. I did not enjoy it, but it's a very good film. And when I say that I didn't enjoy it, this isn't a movie that you kind of go into expecting to come out and be like, yeah, that was a really good time. It's like Schindler's List, another like masterpiece of a film, but you don't really enjoy it because of the material in the film.
Yeah, it's more artistic than it is. We've had the conversation about how important is fun in a film.
Yeah.
And this is one of those examples where it's not really needed because this is such an artistic take on film, that there isn't too much fun to be had, and it's still a great movie.
The fun comes from its technicality and how it's filmed and how it's made, not so much from the characters or the storylines. So it's a little bit different in that regard. But I wanted to make sure that point was clear. This is still a very, very good film, just not one that there's a lot of enjoyment out of it. And that's not a bad thing. I wanted to get that.
Do you think
message
you could
across.
relate this to our review of Pan's Labyrinth? Like, that movie isn't very fun.
I would say it's more fun than this one is. It has more of a
Agreed.
fantastical element.
Yeah, so if you think that movie's not fun, you're really not going to think this movie's fun at all.
Oh, no. Like I would liken this more in terms of like how you watch it to something like Schindler's List, which like you watch it to see something like that happening. Which this movie is very heavy. But let's go ahead and drop the spoiler warning for Requiem for a Dream. We are going to talk about details of the plot, and there also is going to be some not safe for work discussion, I guess, in this.
We might actually have to make this one an explicit tag, not because of language, but
just because of content in the film. There's a lot of sexual content, but there's also a lot of drug content. So there is that to throw out there into the ether. If you do want to watch Requiem for a Dream, it is only available to rent. You cannot stream it anywhere at the current moment. That may change whenever you listen to this or later in the future. But yeah, just check online to see where it's available if you're very interested. But let's go ahead and talk some spoilers for this movie. This is just a downward spiral for 4 different people, which I'm going to go ahead and say off the bat, I don't think Damon Wayans deserved anything that happened to him in this movie. I think he was just along for the ride and got the short end of the stick.
Yeah, I think Jared Leto's character Harry was the driving force in that dynamic. But I do want to point out first and foremost that while the storyline is interesting and it was fascinating to watch, I think that the acting absolutely kept me engaged in this movie.
Yeah.
I think if this were done by lesser actors and actresses, it would not have the acclaim that it does.
Yeah.
I think it was 100% carried by the performances.
Especially, and we'll talk about all 4 performances in general, because they're the strongest point of this movie, and they're the focal point. The strongest is definitely Ellen Burstyn. Who plays
crazy.
Jared Leto's mother, like especially toward the end when she starts having the hallucinations of the TV presenter and, walking through buildings like, I'm supposed to be on TV. That was just
terrifying.
Insane, yeah. And then also, surprisingly, a very good performance from Damon Wayans as well, which is, he's usually a comedy actor. Yeah. And is in a movie like this, which originally the role was supposed to be going to Dave Chappelle, but ended up going to Damon Wayans instead because Dave Chappelle didn't want to do it. I don't remember the exact reason why, but he didn't take the project. Would have been interesting if he was in it to really flex.
I think we would have gotten a whole different Dave Chappelle life had he taken this role.
Maybe.
Like he could have gone down a more serious role or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, like Damon Wayans in this movie though, it just he blew me away. I was like, holy crap! I didn't know this guy could do that well. Like he did surprisingly well. Jared Leto as well. I mean, Jared Leto's just a very talented actor.
He pretty much is always like the keystone of each movie that he's in, or tends to be, unless he's with a much bigger actor.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the only movie he's been a letdown in was Suicide Squad. But like, other than that, I feel like every role he's in has been just
and then even
fantastic.
The only time he's kind of been outshone was when he did Dallas Buyers Club, but he still won for Best Supporting.
They both did. Won.
Yeah, but he was kind of outdone by a much more well-known actor who also is amazing. But in terms of when it's like, if it's Jared Leto's movie, he's always pretty reliable for the most part.
Yeah, and I would say that for this movie, among the 4, he helps carry the weight very well. I would say the only actress that, or the only actor that kind of fails to hit the heights of the others is Jennifer Connelly, but at the same point, she's still very good. She's just I think she has the least to do of the 4, and hers is more kind of a desperation kind of spiral than an addiction one. I don't think they play with the fact that she's addicted to sex or anything.
No, I think it's just that's the means to the end of getting her drugs.
Exactly. Yeah. So, because it kind of felt like everyone had I was trying to picture like if they were all different addictions, like television, drugs, money, and sex or something, but it's all linked back to drugs, which this is a movie that you should definitely show to people who either A, are struggling with drugs and you want to be like, you shouldn't do this, but also B, to people who think that addiction is something very easy to overcome.
I think it's a great showcase of that. It really is.
So, but anything? Let's see. Anything you really want to highlight?
Yeah, I thought Helen's performance at the end of what you were talking about, running into the buildings and being like, I'm supposed to be on TV. What I thought the movie did such a good job of is illustrating that, like, while that seems crazy to the outsider, you watching the movie understand where she's coming from.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she got a call, and then she got a letter. Like, it all makes sense. She should be on TV. So, like, it really kind of made me realize that these people that from the outside you might see as absolutely on the edge of reality, barely there, to them, it 100% makes sense what they're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought I think the fact that the movie could actually portray that relatively well, I don't know how accurate it is. Obviously, I've never been there, and I'm fortunate enough to not have anyone that has been there. But I felt like it was pretty realistic after watching it.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, again, someone coming from the outside point where I've had no experience with anything like that, it seems pretty accurate. I know the only thing that is not accurate is whenever someone uses, I believe it's cocaine that they use, or meth or something, whichever one they use, it shows the people like widening, and it actually does the opposite, I believe, from what I read online.
Yeah, I think it depends. They never talked if it was like heroin or whatever they were
Yeah,
taking.
and they reuse a lot of the same shots over and over again for those, and it's
Yeah.
a little confusing. But it will lead me to a couple of my, or what my main, I guess, criticism is that while the music in this movie is very good, I feel like there's only three or four tracks that are really made for it that they keep reusing.
Yeah.
And while I love the main theme needs to be replayed over and over again. There's this other track that they play like through most of the movie, and I'm just like, okay, why can't I know it's a small budget film, but can you like
Something else,
something
in here.
different, which would be kind of nice to have. That was kind of my one of my main gripes. Also, it kind of does have there's some weird camera angles in it, which lends more into the art kind of style of the film.
Yeah.
Which I think, and this is kind of like an honest criticism, I think that the movie leans a little too heavily into the artsy style and less on the performance. I would have liked to have seen less of the split screen shots and less of the, like maybe do those like the drug taking montages once for each character and then drop it instead of
Because
keep
then
on
we
using
get
them.
it. Yeah.
But I would like to see more of the performance and more of how it's affecting that person and less of, these weirder like artsy style moments. It just didn't always work for me.
Yeah, I will say the one time that, first of all, there were two split screen scenes that I really did enjoy. The first was the actual opening of the film, just because it kind of sets the tone for what you're about to watch.
Yeah.
With the split screen, you immediately realize it's an art house film. You're like, oh, okay, got it. But the other split screen that I really thought was good was when he was laying next to Marion, Jared Leto's character, and I already forgot her name.
Jennifer Connelly?
But yeah, they're laying next to each other, and there's a split screen, even though they're right next to each other, and the timing of the shots, they're two different shots.
Mm-hmm.
So like when one hand moves over, it doesn't cross over at the same time.
Yeah, I saw that too.
And I really liked that because to me it showed that the only way they're connected is through the drugs. There is no actual synchronicity between the two of them.
Yeah.
That they're both just there for the drugs. And I thought that was a very good use of the split screen, or the two shots side by side. But for the most part, it did seem like it kind of just fell flat. Like they were really, it's like someone was like, oh, this is my art project. I got to use all the required shots from my professor.
Yeah.
Is kind of what it felt like.
Or like improve on it, or show him, I'm going to stick it to him and show this actually works, kind of a thing.
Yeah, like maybe the professor said split shots don't work in film. And then this guy was like, you know what?
I got it. Split shots everywhere. But like, again, like not all of it's bad, and not all of it doesn't work. A lot of it works. It's just
A lot of it does.
Yeah, it's just a little jarring sometimes. Especially like the one where they're lying in bed together and they're like, their hands are like, it's like my hand going like this onto Adrian's screen, and you don't see it on his. So it's kind of a weird kind of issue going on. But can we also, I want to point out the quick shout out to Mr. Keith David in this movie, who is one of the creepiest people I think I've ever seen in a film. Like, she's like, oh yeah, my name's Marion. And he's like, all right, Maid Marion. And you're just like, oh no.
There was some really wild lines when he when something's about to happen and he goes, well, I know it's pretty, but I didn't pull it out to breathe. Like, he's just a wild guy.
Yeah, it was so creepy. And you really feel for her in that moment. You're like, no.
Yeah, but again, the movie did do a great job of making the stakes feel real. Like, all of the decisions made by each of these characters throughout the movie, you could feel the weight, whether it was a decision on whether to use or sell or do whatever they were going to do with the drugs. You could feel it. It felt like each decision was going to impact the story heavily.
Yeah.
And I liked that a lot.
Yeah, and I think it was also a smart idea, too, to use seasons. To show the changing of how everything was going. Like summer, everything's fun, fall, everything's starting to fall apart, and then the winter is when everything,
Ice
really
is over,
goes to
yeah.
hell, and then you don't even make it to spring. So it's kind of a weird, or it's a very interesting way of, presenting how the storyline is working. Also, I do want to point out the convenience. I don't know, it kind of felt. I don't know. I want to know how you felt about this. Where when Jared Leto and Damon Wayans are driving to Florida,
Yes.
and they have to stop because Jared Leto has that massive infection on his arm.
Oh, that was so hard to watch.
Yes, that was incredibly disturbing. Especially after watching the documentaries on crocodile and things like that, where that does that to your body.
Then the fact that he shot up into the same spot, like they showed it, I had to look away.
It was just. But
It was bad.
but it's just very convenient that they happened to stop in a town that was in the racist South, which kind of feels like they were it feels like they had ways for Jared Leto and Jennifer Connelly and Ellen Burstyn to reach the lowest point, but it feels like they didn't really have a way for Damon Wayans to. And they kind of they're like, oh, well, they'll stop in the racist South. He'll be arrested just because he went into the hospital. It kind of felt like that, not from a point of oh, I don't want to see racism or anything like that, but it's it felt tacked on as opposed to a natural ending for his character.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. It's almost but I will say he also didn't end up at the bottom. I mean, he ended up
True.
with a job. He'll be okay. He's in a bad place.
Yeah.
But he'll be okay.
Yeah.
Or hopefully. But yeah, I would agree with you that it did seem kind of just oh, okay, that's how you're gonna wrap that up. It's not dying in a drug deal or anything.
Yeah, it's exactly. I was expecting more of a drug deal gone wrong for him, and maybe
I thought he was gonna die when the drug deal went wrong.
Yeah, which that comes out of nowhere halfway through, and it's very interesting. Also, awesome use of a hearing impaired character, which I mean,
yeah,
especially for 2000.
Yeah, I thought it was awesome too because this movie does, to that point, do a great job of making this world just feel diverse. That there is just a lot going on in this world that we can't see, but we know it's happening. And when they use the hearing impaired drug dealer, Kingpin, Angel? No, who was it first?
I don't remember the name.
Yeah, but someone, and immediately I saw it and I was like, oh, that's really cool. And it made me adjust my expectations that hearing impaired people can be drug dealers.
Yeah, they can run the world.
Yeah, they can do whatever they want. It was a great use. I completely agree.
And I also just remembered that what's his name? Keith David's character had a really funny name. I'm trying to remember what exactly it is here. Where is he? I need to look it up because it's driving me crazy. Anything else you want to highlight? Anything? I mean, there wasn't a lot of visual effects or anything in this movie. It was more so
CGI for when they came out of the TV was a little trippy.
Oh yeah.
But I thought that right away when we started with that TV show, I mean, when this came out, TV shows were not like that. Not really. And now that's exactly what all of our game shows are like.
Mm-hmm.
Just an empty crowd that doesn't matter. Lots of flashing lights, prizes that we're unsure who gets them.
Yeah.
Or what the prize is and all this stuff.
Or if they actually get them, yeah.
Yeah, just a lot of kind of false fronts in terms of television and a lot of just big spectacle and no actual concept to it.
One thing I do want to point out about the TV show is that every time Ellen Burstyn sees herself on the show, it's different. Yes. Every time she's more idealized, what she wants to look like and not what she actually looks like. And I thought that was a very good touch.
Yeah, the first time she sees herself, she's in her actual red dress.
Yeah.
And it's her. But then by the end, I mean, she is just an absolute, a Victoria's Secret supermodel in a red dress that's crazy
for
fitting.
her age. Yeah, it's not she's not replaced.
Well, she's not younger
or something. Yeah.
But at that time, I mean, that she turns into an absolutely gorgeous woman for that era. She totally idealizes herself to the point where it's crazy.
Which is, again, it's a part of that addiction problem. She's addicted to the TV show as much as she is to anything else. Which is kind of weird because, it doesn't, most of that TV show doesn't play like a show. It plays like an infomercial.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden there's just a winner. And,
Yeah.
like, it's a very weird situation, but the
But
actor that
I
plays the
thought,
presenter is awesome.
yeah, I thought that they did a great job with that because to me, like the faster we consume media now, the more things are combined, right? Like
Hmm.
if you're watching a Twitch streamer, for example, and they're just playing a game, that's what you're watching, and then they go, "All right, we're doing gift subs. Go ahead and comment, and I'll just pick a winner."
Yeah.
Like it's all kind of becoming one show, if that makes sense, more and more as it gets faster and faster. So I
Hmm.
thought it was a pretty forward-thinking depiction.
Oh, absolutely.
I was actually pretty fascinated by it, and it felt kind of creepy to see it portrayed in such like a dystopian, slimy way.
And 21 years ago, too.
Yeah.
So, but also I want to talk about the ending, the climax,
Yes.
everything falling apart. That was a very haunting kind of moment, kind of
Yeah, that was
scene.
also the only scene Cassidy saw. She came home and it was just that fun. She went, "What are you watching?" I was like,
Like, no, babe, you don't get it.
"It's art. It's art."
Just two girls just going at it in the middle
It
of a
was
club.
in flashes while everybody chants "come," and
Yeah.
and then it's flashing to like someone getting their arm chopped off, and then it's flashing to someone getting
Electrotherapy.
electric therapy in their temples, and then somebody like basically doing borderline slave work in a prison.
It
Like
is
it
slave
was,
work, yeah.
yeah, it was just an absolute montage of debauchery, and that was the only thing she saw.
I love a montage of debauchery. And, like, yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. Like, a lot of drug use, I mean, it won't lead to that specifically, but it does ruin your life. So it's a very apt kind of showing of what can happen.
Yeah. I
So,
also thought the ending, specifically the very, very end, when we do find out what the prize the mom wanted all along, and that was just for her son to be around.
yeah.
And so, like, and basically, they both chased this dream that they thought could fulfill a hollow hole in their hearts, but what they both just wanted was each other.
Yeah.
Or what they both needed was each other. He needed his mom to correct him, and she needed him to just be there.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a great ending that, like, yeah, you just need people. You don't need drugs, you just need people.
Yeah. A haunting and just very, very interesting film. So, but let's go ahead and give some final thoughts and maybe some scores. I think it's time to wrap this first timers up. Adrian, what are your final thoughts and what's your score?
Final thoughts for not knowing about anything that this movie had to offer me. I was pleasantly surprised. I definitely knew immediately I was in for an art house film, like I said, based off that first shot. So I adjusted expectations to be more on the creative side than like big blockbuster things like that. So I personally feel this movie delivers on what it tries to do. I think it gets a little ahead of itself at times. I think it tries a little too hard, maybe jumps the shark here and there, in terms of what it's actually the goal. And I think the artistic aspect of it definitely overrides some of the performances that I think should have been highlighted a little more. I think it would have been more
Yeah.
interesting to focus more on the characters than the scenarios. But all in all, I mean, I thought it was a great movie. I get why it's gone down as a really good movie. And because of all of those reasons, and the main song, which I love, because of all those reasons, I give this movie an 86.
86. Okay. Yeah, I like for as much for my final thoughts, I think that it is a supremely dark, disturbing, but also a necessary film that really should be shown to a lot of people who think that addiction or drug use is something that's very easy to overcome, but also to people who need to be shown that it's not the right thing to do. And while there's not a lot of enjoyment to be found in this movie, that's the point. It's supposed to provide this harsh picture to
Yep.
hopefully stop people from doing it. But all said and done, at the end of the day, I think this movie, again, like you said, it does get a little ahead of itself. It's a little too artsy in locations where I would have rather seen a performance piece for these four actors. And because of that, I gave it an 84. So we're actually pretty close.
Wow.
I definitely don't think it deserves the 10 out of 10s that it gets, but it's
No.
still a very, very enthralling film regardless. So, but yeah, that's the end of this First Timers for Requiem for a Dream. Dang, that was a heavy one.
Yeah,
Luckily,
great start.
luckily next week it lightens up a little bit.
Yeah. That's true.
A little bit more fun, but still pretty disturbing. But we'll see what happens. Yeah, Adrian, we've got some listeners out there. By this point, I would hope they know where to find us. But if they don't, where can they find us?
You can find us at the Drive Back Podcast pretty much anywhere. Links will be down in the description below. Go ahead and make sure to hit that subscribe button if you're watching us here on this beautiful platform called YouTube, because we do have exclusive content here on YouTube. Extra videos you won't get if you're listening to the podcast on any audio-only format. You get exclusive content if you look at our beautiful faces so we can see you. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you're here, or go ahead and follow if you're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, any of those other platforms. Go ahead and make sure to hit the notification so you actually get notified whenever we have a new episode come out, because we do have those every Monday at a minimum. Sometimes we throw in a little bit of spice here and there, and you'll get an extra bit of content here or there. If you're on Instagram and you want to go ahead and follow us there, we do post very quick reviews. If a movie's kind of just come out, but it's not like worth a full half an hour, full hour review, we'll just go ahead and give a quick little blurb and give you a score.
Yeah.
That way, if you're kind of heading to the theater this weekend to see it, you can just get a quick idea of how we feel about it, and you can decide if that affects your judgment, which it may or it may not. You might not care, but we care about you, so go ahead and follow us, and we'll see you next time.
Absolutely. Look forward. We should be, as far as the plan right now, we should have a review for Black Widow this weekend, hopefully.
I'm planning on seeing it. I'm planning on, I think, tomorrow potentially.
Okay, so look out. We might have a review coming up on Monday, hopefully, and then we will talk about Black Widow then, because that is part.
Is Black Widow also just Spider Woman because she's a spider?
No, you know Black Widow. Come on. Anyhow. But as Adrian said, make sure you follow us online for notifications, know when we're going to be posting videos and content. But other than that, we love you guys so much. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And we'll see you next time on The Drive Back. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Drive Back. Make sure to be on the lookout for new episodes every Monday. And make sure to follow us on social media.